Glenn Loury here. This is the Glenn Show. Glenn and John, we're the black guys at bloggingheads.tv. There is something of the mea culpa variety that I think has to be entertained here.
What?
Glenn Loury, Trump apologist.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In other words, whenever we would have a talk about Trump, you would be in the position, he's a buffoon, he's a jackass, he's an idiot, he's a monster, he's a moron, he's a child. And I would be saying something like, well, wait a minute, John, you just, I know you live wherever you live in New York City, and you got to maintain your viability within your social circle, and, so you have to spout these kind of things. But I mean, how can he be so stupid if he's been so successful in his political career? And how can, and I'm giving the man the benefit of the doubt. He is the president. He has tens of millions of people who believe in him. He's their tribune. Have some respect for them if you don't have any respect for him. He's not that bad. You exaggerated. He didn't, at Charlottesville, he didn't support the white supremacy. I've been heard to say all of this kind of stuff. Okay. But let me not mince words. And I know I've been talking for a while, John. I was wrong about the threat that Donald Trump posed to American democracy. I underestimated that threat. Now, I don't know for sure that the election was in every respect on the up and up in every state in which disputes have been raised. I don't know that for sure. I don't know it.
For that? Oh,
none of us know it. None of us know it. We have faith in the system the same way that we believe when we go in for brain surgery and we don't know a damn thing about neurology, that it's going to be okay. When we get on an airplane and we know absolutely nothing about avionics, that it's going to be okay. We basically have to trust institutions. The courts have vetted many of the claims that Trump supporters have made in the aftermath of this election. He's gotten no traction. He's gotten no support from the sources of political authority that he might have looked to in the Republicans and in the state houses and so forth for his dead-ender policy. He lost the election, whether it was stolen from him or not. I happen not to know. He lost the election. That's what I do know. I do know that the social fact of him having lost the election is a fact. Just as many people say that Richard Nixon had that election stolen from him in 1960 by shenanigans in the state of Illinois on behalf of the John F. Kennedy campaign. Mm-hmm. Just as many people believe that Al Gore had that election stolen from him in Florida in 2000 because of the recounting shenanigans and the role that the Supreme Court played in bringing the recount to a halt in Florida, a very close election. Those guys lost those elections in the sense that to have continued to persist in objecting to the electoral outcome would have despoiled American democracy. And they were sufficiently civic-minded enough to stand aside. Trump should have stood aside. If they stole it from him, they stole it fair and square, and it was stolen. There was nothing that could be done about that. Nothing good could have come of his persistence in the path that he chose. Nothing but destruction could follow from him having chosen that path. I don't believe, and I'll say this, that Trump, in the remarks that he made before that crowd descended on the Capitol, incited insurrection. I think that that's hyperbole. But he certainly played with fire, and he ended up getting burned by it, and the country even more badly burned. And a bigger man, I'm saying it now, can you hear me? A bigger man would have stood aside and accepted the outcome in the interest of the country, regardless of the doubts that he and his people may have had about it. Perhaps there should have been a commission to investigate whether or not the move to mail-in balloting in the scope and extent that occurred because of COVID posed threat to the security of the election in such a way that one wants to consider whether or not to adopt that as an ongoing way of carrying on elections. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to investigate. But tying that to holding up the inauguration of Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris, tying that to the resolution of this essential right of American democracy and asking for extra legal, even Mike Pence couldn't be persuaded to go along, means to be employed in order to stop the enactment of the natural processes of American democracy when you do not have the evidence on your side to justify your perhaps legitimate suspicions. That was an act of a destructive and ill-considered act of narcissism and personal aggrandizement at the expense of the republic, and it deserves to be condemned. I was wrong.